Mr. Goyal, you've had a packed schedule in the United States. There are two big economic meetings happening, and you're here for the idea of India in the sense that India is the place to be. What's been the big message? Because, of course, APEC, India is not a member of it, but you're here as a guest. India has been invited for the first time. What is the big message you're giving?
Well, I think very clearly the world is looking at India and the way India's leadership has emerged over the last few years. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, recognized today as truly a world leader of substance, somebody people respect immensely, look up to his leadership, is reflected in our engagements at the APEC, at IPEF. They are all looking up to India to contribute in a big way for a safe, secure Indo-Pacific region. They are all looking at India as the growth engine of the world economy. And my engagements with different leaders here, my meetings with my counterparts, with industry, captains of industry, all demonstrate very clearly the excitement about working with India, working in India, and the expectations that are today quite large from the India story.
It's interesting because, of course, India isn't a part of APEC, yet we've been invited for the first time. Do you think India needs to be part of APEC sooner rather than later? And, of course, the geopolitics, given that President Xi has come to the US after 5 years to attend this summit. You've said that the India-US relationship has nothing to do with what many say is the China plus one strategy of the United States.
I'm very convinced that today India stands on its own feet. India is a compelling case for investment. It's a compelling partnership based on trust, which we are forging with different countries. And while we are now very actively engaged with IPEF, we haven't applied our mind to joining up with APEC at the present moment. But it's been nice to be formally invited. Prime Minister Modi would have come, but for the elections going on in India. But clearly the respect that India is getting from the United States of America, from their leaders, from the other countries around the world, reflects the growing importance of India as a country and the huge adulation, I can say, that I see amongst the leaders when they talk about Prime Minister Modi.
How closely is India watching the meeting which just happened with President Xi and President Biden? And what would you say about this China plus one strategy? Do you agree with it at all?
Well, that's an internal matter between the US and China, and we wish them well. We have no reason to watch that meeting, as you're saying. But more importantly, across the world, there is a recognition that there should be more resilient supply chains. Across the world, businesses are concerned about their experiences of the recent past. They are also very concerned about transparency, about opaque business practices, about and the big value that democracy brings to the table. In all those respects, and when you have an overlay of the cost of doing business, where India today stands out as a very, very attractive destination, I think India will be an important partner in supply chains, more for the trust that they have in our abilities.
So for American companies, it's made in India because so many of the engineers are from India. But you visited the Tesla factory, and I think you made that point that you were excited to see that the number of components they import from India is going to double. You were excited to see the number of Indian engineers there. But the big question, Bloomberg just reported that India is considering perhaps a tax holiday or tax cuts on fully assembled electric vehicles to come in for the first 5 years. Any confirmation of that?
Please don't buy the stories that you see on news channels.
That's
or
why I'm
news
asking
media
you
all the time. My visit was primarily around meeting the Tesla team, many of whom are Indians and have done us proud. It was also to discuss their plans about an increasing India element in their supply chain, and I'm really immensely pleased at their plans to double their imports from India. And going forward, they're really looking at very aggressive plans along with reputed auto component manufacturers in India. There are many other discussions which are always there on the table. But for the present, the meeting was focused on what we can do to be an important element of their supply chain.
But this is actually a proposal made by Elon Musk earlier in 2021 that give us some kind of tax holiday and incentive to come in. Is that something the government will consider seriously?
Very clearly, we would like to see a lot more happening in the electric vehicle ecosystem in India. You can see that we are adopting EVs very fast. The two-wheeler industry, for example, is seeing nearly 40% of two-wheelers being sold in India being electric. Going forward, I think on commercial vehicles, whether it's buses, trucks, or even passenger cabs, it's a no-brainer to use electric vehicles. It's much more economical and eco-friendly. Yes. On passenger vehicles, I think the battery costs are a deterrent, and we are seeing that rapidly correcting itself. And I do think that in the years ahead, the EV ecosystem in India is going to grow rapidly. Probably the fastest ramp up you'll see in the next 10 years of electric vehicles will happen in India. So I suspect all the countries around the world would like to come to India. We have good domestic manufacturing capability on electric vehicles already. Government has bought a lot of electric vehicles also. I see them all over the place in the private sector.
So you're not willing to go down that road of tax cuts? You're not thinking of that yet because you think our market is big enough?
I think we'll talk to all the players and have a conversation with other electric vehicle manufacturers both in India and across the world and come up with a cogent policy which will support the electric vehicle ecosystem. And just imagine if we cut down the $100 billion of oil imports into the country, and we would have a trade surplus every year.
Exactly.
And India would be a growth story like unparalleled in history.
You know, and one interesting aspect has been because so often geopolitics takes matters really out of any country's planning. So we've seen that with the ban on the export of rice because of what happened in Ukraine. Now you've got what's happening in Israel and Palestine. How worried are you about looking, because of India's plan to become the third largest economy in a few years, how do you think these global conflicts are actually impacting India? And again, we talk about the voice of the global south, but India has differed quite significantly on the view on the conflict from many other countries of the global south.
At the outset, in terms of our growth trajectory, I think Prime Minister Modi has steered the Indian economy so beautifully, strengthening the macroeconomic fundamentals, creating a whole country of 140 crore aspirational Indians looking for a better quality of life, and the deep focus on infrastructure development. This trinity of actions is something which has helped India be poised for probably 3 or 4 decades of high growth rates. So in terms of India becoming the third largest economy, I don't think it will be more than 3 or 4 years down the road. So when Prime Minister Modi guarantees that in his third term, India will be the third largest economy, I think it's a no-brainer. It's 100% there. On your other point about the geopolitical situation, first of all, let me clarify, any of our bans are not because we are unable to meet the needs of others. It's just to ensure that the greed of some unscrupulous business persons or traders does not cause international prices to go crazily high. So in effect, our bans are more to keep prices both in India and in other less developed countries or emerging markets stable. We do provide rice or other food grains to all our friendly countries, to all our deserving partners, particularly the less developed countries, which is at affordable prices and helps them maintain price stability. So more cases than not, our restrictions on export are directed towards channelizing the available material or food grains for global good, rather than allowing it to become a matter of profiteering by certain businesses.